As Xander said, I'm going to be doing two things, both of them short. One of them is going to be a reading of a posting I did on the website called Total New York, which some of you may have heard of, and a lot of you have actually worked on. Thinking of Sean's comment, "It's a small world." It's like an amazing synchronicity in this room tonight. I was the founding and first editor of Total New York. Sean was the outgoing and final editor of Total New York. The Spanker is here tonight. I won't reveal his identity. Plus a healthy contingent from Ottawa and Bart from the Netherlands, whom I met some 3.5 years ago at Total's launch party and haven't seen again until tonight when I'm about to read its obituary. So I'm not sure what that says about the life cycle of websites. But anyway, so I'm going to read this, and then the next thing I want to do is kind of I've decided I'm going to call it Barlow Unplugged, because it's a Q&A of a piece that ran on Total. It's a Q&A with John Perry Barlow about cybersex, and I managed to talk him into, against his better judgment, coming here and recreating the Q&A live. You laugh now. Total Recall. This was posted in March, early March, just a few days after the very final edition of Total went up, where it's now, for those of you who care, in kind of a digital suspended animation, neither live nor dead, preserved forever until the server gets unplugged. Total Recall. Trying to imagine a time after Total is as unthinkable as remembering a time before Total. But there will be, and there was. As Total's editor and site director from its inception until the summer of 1996, I remember the formative sessions in John Borthwick's living room with the rest of the founding crew, talking about this site we wanted to build and what it might be called. 212, too Manhattan-centric. New York I, too obscure. Metropolis, too, well, metropolitan. In the end, we settled on Total New York, as much because no one hated it as anything else. The only problem was it sounded so big and definitive, so total. We figured we'd grow into the name, and eventually we did. But Total, of course, never pretended to be comprehensive. Its mission was more ambitious than that. The idea was to tap the things about this town that got our blood moving and bring them into focus in this wacky new world called the web. For me, Total lived up to its name in a more personal way. Everything I ever cared about or knew about became part of it, and vice versa. Total, ultimately, was about exploration, expression, and growth. About pushing the boundaries and making a difference. About using your head and following your gut. It was then, and it is now. So, the second part of this now is John Barlow, for those of you who have missed the chance to know this or know him, was a founding writer of Wired and The Well, and a co-founder of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a Wyoming cattle rancher, and Grateful Dead lyricist. John? I could go on.
Stay back there and see how far you went.
Yes, you could have done that. All right, why don't you sit on this one? So actually, there's another, the second Earl, the Barlow Earl. You get a little visual representation. It's sort of live. Okay, here's the intro, and then we'll go to the Q&A part. And we'll watch him to see if he gets to read. Now, see, John.
Now, this is really unfair because I can't do what I was going to do, which was to simply ignore the answers that I actually gave when we did this interview. They will.
No, but it's actually better if the past is juxtaposed. Oh, never mind. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I get it. It's kind
of post-Total.
Well, this is a really bad idea, by the way. I got to tell you that Guy Garcia, for some reason, has the capacity to get me to do stuff that nobody else would get me to do, and I don't know why he affects my judgment in this way. But to read a transcript of an interview of yourself 3 years later is not a good idea. So we're going to have to try to mess with the format here a little bit because...
No, but when you asked me, why do I feel like I'm on the Ed Sullivan show? But when you asked me, why do I have to read my answers? I realized there was absolutely no reason,
Right.
as long as I read the questions. So he's on his own now. I'm going to read the intro and then we'll start.
All right.
Cybersex does strange things to John Perry Barlow. His eyes narrow, his voice lowers, and his normally genial countenance takes on a pugilistic scowl. If this were a cartoon...
Especially now.
Especially now. If this were a cartoon, you would see steam blowing out of his ears. But the issue of censorship in cyberspace, as recent developments with CompuServe in Germany and our own Congress have shown, is all too real, which is why the former Wyoming rancher and Grateful Dead lyricist is so passionate about keeping the internet free from meddling moralists. As co-founder and vice chairman of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, an organization dedicated to preserving freedom on the net, Barlow is helping to lead the fight against what he regards as a reactionary force that threatens the democratic spirit of the information revolution. Question 1, ready to talk about sex on the internet?
I was then.
And I am now.
I know. But I guess I am, yeah, sure.
Okay, good. That was close. Tough
I
interview
can't believe
subject.
what I said in response to that question.
You know, if you're not careful, I'm going to read your answers for you.
God.
So it's email as foreplay.
Yeah, sure. The net is a good place to conduct foreplay because everyone feels safe. Which, you know, when you think about it, is a very dumb thing to say because one of the great things about foreplay is that you don't feel safe. I mean, if you don't like the flavor of it, you can just shut off the connection, which is also true in meat space, but never mind that. If you're going to do well in cyberspace, you really have no choice but to talk about your feelings. You're not going to get very far if you keep the conversation to sports scores.
Why is the internet so conducive to sex?
Let's see what I said here. Huh, what horseshit. Wow. Oh, no, part of this is good. I said, I used to think, what is sex without the body? And this was actually a great realization. There was a period when I was going around talking about virtual reality. There was actually sort of a circuit of 4 or 5 people that were doing this. And it was a nice gravy train while it lasted until I had a stock answer to the question because I got it so often, and I'd say, well, you know, I can't think of a place less sexy. It's like having had your body amputated. And there was this young woman in the front row that said, yeah, but don't you think that when it comes to sex that the body is just a prosthesis? And I said, a prosthesis for what? And she said, that's the interesting question, isn't it? And I've been thinking about that question ever since. It's been one of the best questions anybody ever asked me. But that's, I actually, my real answer to this question now is that there's something about going into the material world that involves sex, obviously, and of the materialization process. No, that sounds like horse shit too. Never mind, scratch it.
Next question. Have you ever had an online romance?
Yes, I have.
No emotional speed bumps.
That's in it. Positive feedback in a way that is completely unpredictable and will be something that people can turn into an addictive environment. Because that's what addiction is about, trying to second guess.
Seen screen captures of people using CUC-Me two-way video technology to expose themselves to each other. Virtual flashing. I think that was more of a confession than a statement, or a question rather.
Did you say that or did I say that?
I don't know. No, I said that. And next question. Oh, this one you don't have to look at your notes for.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get a real answer to this. You're the father of 3 young daughters. Aren't you concerned about what they might encounter surfing the net?
No. I'm much more concerned about what they might encounter in the backseat of an Oldsmobile 3 miles outside of Pinedale, Wyoming. I'm not terribly concerned about that. I think that most people who are concerned about sex in cyberspace haven't been there very much, or they are of that mindset that would have our children grow up without any exposure to its adults, to abstract them from all of its realities. and then spring it on them suddenly when they're 18 years old. And it would seem to me that if you don't want your children looking at pornography, you should raise them to find it as distasteful as you do. And most kids do, actually. I mean, my daughters think it's yucky. They can see what's exploitive about it right away. It's sort of obvious. I don't have to keep them from it. They're better seeing it.
Let's keep going with the extemporaneous. What's the sexiest thing you've ever seen on the internet?